try and create the analogy of Tinder for heat pumps.
Have you got a heat pump at home?
Okay, 55 degrees is our sweet point to stay married.
Heat pump is shit. Bubble of nerds and eco warriors.
Boiler was in the skip within about 4 hours.
He put the pump in a wrong direction.
Be honest about this, I have never bought a heat pump in my life. A couple of days is okay.
We have some good heat pump.
I'm accompanied by a group of lovely people here who are all a bit superstarish. So I'm going to ask them to really quickly just introduce themselves. Starting with you, Ian.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ian Edgeworth. I'm the Managing Director of Energy Punk. It's written right across my T-shirt. We are developing a new training platform to assist engineers transition to low temperature. And I did get a shameless plug in there, so thanks, Graham.
Hi everyone, my name is Mario Dodic. I'm heat pump trainer and also developed online educational interactive platform for engineers, and also creating a lot of technical educational content for YouTube channels and social media. And I'm from Croatia, so I think only one out of the UK currently here.
Afternoon, my name's Rhiannon DeReed. I'm a project manager at Hire. I've had a background as an installer, surveyor. I've come through and had a go at everything, really.
Hello, I am Ollie Zanetti. I'm a senior mission manager at Nesta. My job is to do with encouraging heating engineers to move into heat pumps. But as an organisation, we look across the whole piece. So we think about how to get more consumers to buy heat pumps, what we can do to lobby the government to make heat pumps a more attractive offer for householders, all of these things. So we're big into heat pumps.
Hi everyone, I'm Lewis Liveland. I'm the installer network lead at HeatGeek. Ex-engineer, moved into training, and now basically helping HeatGeek to make it easier for installers to install heat pumps at a very high level. So yeah, nice to meet everyone.
Okay, so stupidly they let me come up with the questions, and so I'm going to start with a nice, easy one. So last year in the UK there were 1.4 million boilers sold and 100,000 heat pumps. My question is, why so few heat pumps? Ian?
Cheers, Graham. Cost is a barrier. Today's session is called Sell Me a Heat Pump in 5 minutes. That is not an easy thing to do when you think about cost implications. We still have a skills gap as well. So there's a whole collective form of problems that are stunting this transition to get anywhere near the boiler market. Boilers, if we're being pragmatic about it, are familiar, they're safe, they're what we're used to, they're in the main reliable, all the things that heat pumps are. We just need to get that message across as well.
So I think mostly is because, let's say, gas boiler industry in residential houses are for quite a long time here. Heat pumps, as you know, as everyone knows, in commercial, in hotels, every hotel is heated and cooled by heat pumps. Here is heat pump, so heat pump is not something new. What is, let's say, new that in residential buildings, what we are talking now, you usually have, let's say with gas boilers, you have everything in one box and you don't care about anything else. With heat pumps, you have a lot of additional components which are usually unnecessary, but we are overcomplicating things. So this is, I think we need to simplify the process and make it easier for installers, for engineers, and for end users to understand that it's not rocket science. This is how, let's say, we are trying to educate people, but we need also, in education, we need to put things in a more simple way. Not like trying to explain all refrigerant cycle or hydronics for everyone. So I think you are a good example of that. You are doing a lot of this easy to understand posts and trying to put it to mass audience. I think this is the key. And of course, cost. Let's say gas boiler price, let's say in the UK, it's much more cheap to run than electricity, and in most of the Europe is the same. For example, Scandinavia, you know, you have examples from Finland. When this price gap is not so high, it's much easier to adopt technology, because technology is excellent, but adoption is with these few different factors.
Yeah, I think following on from what Mario said, it's really important now. We're starting to get into a stage where we need to sell them differently. People aren't interested in all the technical stuff that we can tell them. And I think a really important part of how this industry can move forward is how much you listen to the person that you're selling the heat pump to start with. I think we really need to stop going straight in with too much technical stuff. I think you need to listen and sort of gauge where your end user is at. Because if too much technical, you're going to turn them off. Not enough, and they won't have confidence. And the problem with that is everybody is different. Everybody has different interests, and you can't assume anything. And I think when we start doing that, when we start having a different message or a simpler message, you know, just looking at sort of coming out of that early adopters stage and we start to move into the early majority, that message needs to change. And I think it will make a difference.
Very nice. I agree with all of what we've heard so far. I guess one of the things that I'd say is maybe the best seller of a heat pump is the person who's already got a heat pump. So at Nesta, we run a scheme called Visitor Heat Pump. I think we try and create the analogy of Tinder for heat pumps. I'm not sure if it's quite the right one, but it kind of does the job, right? Basically, what we have is householders who have got a heat pump, they love their heat pump, and they are willing to invite somebody who's interested in getting a heat pump to come round to their house to ask them the questions that they, maybe don't want to ask an installer because maybe they feel like silly questions. Maybe they just want to see it. You know, they've heard all this stuff. It's really loud. They can go and stand in the garden. It's not loud. They can stand in the house and be like, I am actually warm, even though it's cold outside. So they get all this nice social proof. They get the physical proof that it works. And it's also really great for installers too. So it's kind of a way to like share information between householders. But what we've also found and what we're promoting at the moment is something for installers, so they can list their installations on visitheatpump.org, possibly .uk, I should remember that. And so they can use it as a bit of a shop window. So if you're an installer, you can say, I'm going to go do a good job, don't worry about that. But if you really want to see, maybe go and see one of the householders that I've installed a heat pump in. So that is a really good way to get some social proof, some kind of confirmation that it's going to work for you and it's going to work in a house that looks and feels like yours.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything everybody's already said. And, you know, a big message from us is that the installer is the most important person in this whole process, especially for like the average homeowner. I think, you know, if you're in this space already, you're in this bubble of nerds and eco warriors, and that's like, you know, 1% of the actual population. And, you know, we already seen that 99% of the population are moving towards, you know, just sticking with the gas boiler as the next heating appliance. But if we can train our installers who are fixing these gas boilers or going out to, you know, change a radiator, to have like an honest conversation and a knowledgeable conversation to say, with your next appliance, why don't you think about this heat pump that, you know, does the same job as your boiler, it just sits outside. And, you know, it's that message because, as we all know, like, hardly anybody trusts what a politician says. Hardly anybody trusts what policymakers say. Like, the average person trusts, you know, the engineer who stood in someone's kitchen saying, you know what, I think you should get a heat pump because of this, this, and this. And we need more installers, you know, more engineers, not just heat pump engineers, just more engineers having that same conversation going. For your next appliance, why don't you think about this? And I think that is the key message. And again, we need to promote all this funding, all this kind of stuff. I think the majority of it needs to go towards getting more installers to get up to that standard where they're able to do that, and the technology to help them do this quicker and do this easier as well. But it all comes down to that education at the starting point, because we have got, you know, thousands and thousands of heating engineers out there who don't know what they don't know because they've never been trained properly, and I was one of them people. And again, until it's like thrown in your face of like, you do realise you've been doing this wrong with boilers. I think until, you know, we throw that at people and say, here's how you actually do it, here's a helping hand to move into this new technology. They're the key. Like, not, you know, none of this, you know, politician talk and all this like funding. You can throw all the funding you want in the world. If the person in your kitchen who's the expert is saying they don't work, you're going to believe that person, and the average homeowner would do that. So again, key for me is empowering that installer to have that conversation.
Before we move on, I just want to say that I did a visit a heat pump sort of afternoon, and it was excellent. I got a lot from it, as much as the other people. We were buzzing, we've kept in touch, and I think I think if more people could do that, Graham, have you ever had anyone round to look at your heat pump?
I've had a couple of engineers upgrade the software, but no, like humans.
Time to get listed on the scheme then.
Can I just say as well that I have Googled Tinder for heat pumps. I did mean it. I didn't get two different subject matters mixed up just for the sake of my wife sitting here. So yeah, go Google Tinder for heat pumps. It'll brighten up your day.
Google visitor heat pump. Visitor heat pump.
Okay, so
Got it.
I like the sound of the visitor heat pump. I think it's a great idea. I'm a complete believer in the fact that people who have a heat pump genuinely are kind of evangelists for the technology. So let me ask probably the second most difficult question. Have you got a heat pump at home? And if not, why not?
Thank God for that. Yes, I do. Our house, we moved into our house about 3 years ago. It's a new build development. It had a brand new ideal gas combination boiler in it. And after about a year, I pitched a project to my wife and said that I wanted to exchange the gas boiler for a heat pump, to which my wife said no. I then said, pretty please, and she said, well, tell me the benefits. Now, everything in our house screams, don't fit a heat pump. If you read the misinformation that's out there, we've got 10mm plastic buried in walls. We've got single panel radiators. The design spec for our property has got a flow temperature design of 80 degrees. Now, when we moved in, I secretly started turning the boiler thermostat down unbeknown to my wife till it got to the stage it went, the house is no longer warm enough. And I went, right, okay, 55 degrees is our sweet point to stay married. I then knew that I could install a heat pump and look at a flow temperature around about 50, 55 degrees. We called it Project Retrofit, aka taking one for the team. And I actually did the mathematics on running costs on a beer mat one night on a Friday, in the local one night. And when I could prove that the heat pump would be less to run than the gas boiler, all of a sudden the mood changed and it was, yes, you can fit your heat pump. When it arrived, I then decided to tell my wife, no, it's not going to work, right? Because we've got so many problems in the house. I literally just lumped that heat pump onto the existing system, made no tweaks whatsoever, and it is running like a dream, and I am still married, and that's the barometer of success for me.
To answer your question, at home, no. Because in Croatia we have buildings and apartments. And I have, let's say, new gas boiler 5 years ago, but in my office I put a heat pump. And what I think is also the wrong message and why you have such a bad press, because let's say we are pushing heat pumps everywhere. They can work everywhere, but if you have new gas boiler, condensing boiler working pretty good, why will you spend 15, 20,000 when there is no need for that? Of course, if you want, it's fine. But then, if you do that and you have situation like Luis told us that you are not trained enough and you have bad press and you have really high running costs, everyone will say heat pump is shit. I always like to use...
Was that creation?
Huh?
Was that creation?
Which one?
The shit.
You will not understand. Maybe on Scottish, but so the same is with if you buy Ferrari and drive it on side road, it will not work. So this is why I think, as Ian mentioned a few times, we need good heating engineers, because heat source is heat source. Doesn't matter what is the heat source.
Yep, I've got a heat pump.
What brand is it?
I'm very proud to say I've got a Mitsubishi heat pump.
I've
I've had it for nearly 3 years, and you know, the story was similar. In like my husband said something about all the floors looking, you know, let's change this floor, and I said, well, hang on a minute, I know there's pipes under there, and I know where I want my primaries to run, and it's right under there. So if we're going to change the floor, let me fit a heat pump first. So we did. He is a complete convert. I didn't have to play around lowering the flow temperature. I was confident. But we did have solar for a couple of years before that, and he was very happy with, all of that. In our house now, if you set the thermostat for like 21 degrees, everyone else who lives in my house walks around half naked.
Can we visit the heat pump?
It's too warm. It's too warm and they love it. So we've all had to sort of cope with, just a really comfortable house now. Incredibly comfortable. I'm very happy. Yeah. And if we do move house in the future, I will be getting another heat pump from another manufacturer.
Right. Diplomatic answer.
Good answer.
House is on the market.
Very good. I think this is my cue to encourage everyone to look over there for a second while I run off stage. I don't have a heat pump at home. I live in a top floor flat. It's a leasehold flat. I think it's a real challenge. We could maybe install one on the roof, but it's a challenge, particularly with leasehold, and it's something which Nesta as well is looking into. But I think, in terms of some of the challenges that people face, it's important to recognise flats, particularly as you mentioned, are difficult. Let's start with the properties that can be done, but not just say that the only properties that can be done are triple insulated, very modern buildings, because that's definitely not true.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I've not got a heat pump yet. I've only just moved into a new house, so that's my excuse.
How long have you been in the new house?
Just like a couple of days.
A couple of days is okay.
We have some good heat pump here. So.
But I will say I've already run Zero Disrupt, which is our tool to go through that. And, as Ian said, a lot of homes actually don't need much work at all. And when you get into it, you can literally just put, and it sounds really bad this, and it sounds like, oh, cowboy, but you can literally just put a heat pump on. As long as you set that up correctly, in a lot of cases, it's perfectly fine. I mean, my house was built in 1915, I think, and over the years, the insulation levels have improved, and, people have put in double glaze and all this kind of stuff, but that core of the heating system was still the one that was put in 1960. So when somebody actually did the pipe sizing at that point, it was for a high heat loss. And when they sized the width for the rads at that point, it was for a high heat loss. But again, the heat loss has come down. But no one's ever gone in and go, okay, we've put double glazing in now, we should probably get under the floor and rip out that 22 and put it down to 15. And so again, a lot of the emitters and all that kind of stuff, they're already at the right size. A lot of pipework's at the right size. And importantly, one thing that a lot of the industry, I think, needs to acknowledge is a lot of cylinders are perfectly fine. And what we say, especially at HeatGeek, is just do the calculations as you would do with a radiator. Because people are walking into homes going, oh, that's not a heat pump cylinder because the coil's slightly smaller. It's just do the same calculation you do with your rads. If it's a smaller coil, then fair enough, you might need to run at a higher temperature. Just take that difference off your estimated SCOP and do the calculations. And again, rather than having this rule of thumb of you need a heat pump cylinder, you need to change every single rad. You literally don't. Just do the simple calculations and you'll work out actually it's not worth you spending $6,000 replacing the whole heating system because you'll never make that money back. But if you do the calculations, you might not need to spend anything at all and you'll get an efficient system and just do the calculations at the end of it.
It's really interesting, and apologies if anyone's heard me say this before, but it follows off on what was said. We've got 6 heat pump passionate people, I'll keep it at that, on the panel, and not everyone's got a heat pump. And one of the reasons for that is a heat pump isn't always the right solution to every problem. We talk about the silver bullet, and again, apologies if I've had this conversation with you before, but I think we need a term of silver shrapnel. We need different solutions for different problems. We need an informed workforce who are confident to instill the correct information to the end user to allow them to make an informed decision as well. So I don't think we should be pillared because we've not all got heat pumps. That's the way the housing stock in the UK will develop over time.
I suppose I better answer that question too, hadn't I? Have I got a heat pump?
How many?
But you're the only one who knows how to sell heat pump in 5 minutes.
I've got 5 around the house, only 1 connected. I'm on my 11th. I get given them. So I test them on my house and my poor wife puts up with it. So we had a 1922 house to begin with. I'm a fridge engineer, I'm not a plumber. So I don't know how to do plumbing. So I just chopped the pipes off, connected it straight to the heat pump and turned it on. Guess what? It works. It's just a boiler. It lives in the garden. It's nothing fancy. There's lots of things you have to do, but I had a similar position to you. Ancient heating system, but we increased the lagging, so it worked. I've yet to find a house I've lived in where it didn't work. No pressure there, Lewis, but when I moved into my new house 2.5 years ago, the boiler was in the skip within about 4 hours of getting the keys. I mean, just saying. Again, luckily, I don't know if Phil's here, but Phil Scrafton delivered me a heat pump to my house on the day, and it arrived as we were moving in with the removal truck.
I have to offer a confession at this stage as well, because I think Phil is about somewhere. I get given my heat pump as well. I didn't actually purchase it, so it made the decision making a bit easier, so I'll just be completely transparent.
Well, that brings me to my killer question, which is the only reason I agreed to do this panel, is this. So we're all enthusiasts. Most of us have got these things. We touched them, we've heard them, and so on. But quite an interesting question is, I'll be honest about this, I have never bought a heat pump in my life. Every heat pump I've got I was given for nothing or I stole from my own company. And the question is, I can think of a lot of things that I'd spend 20 grand on, right? And none of them say heat pump at the beginning. I think £20,000 for a heating system is ridiculous. It's a crazy amount of money. You can have a bloody good holiday and buy a Rolex for the same money. So my big killer question is, if you had to spend £15,000, don't care how you finance it, obviously Ian's independently wealthy, Mario's a lottery winner, and so on, but if you had to do it, you had to raise the money on your mortgage, would you spend £15,000 on a heat pump or 3 grand on a boiler?
You can spend. This is why, let's say, less is more, and you know that. If you put this in equation, let's say what I think we need to focus. Let's say in Croatia, I'm talking about Croatia. New builds are mostly going with heat pumps. Yep. So in new build, you need to install some heating system. If you compare it, even with gas boiler, it will be the same price.
Yep.
This is fine. For retrofits, as I told you previously, there is no sense if there is too much money to enter. But if you know what you are doing, you can pay less than this 15 grand. And for example, one project in Croatia, new build, it's the same like here. Everyone wants 10 pumps everywhere. One guy told to me, and I removed 2 pumps, a lower capacity, and we saved 4,000. And I said, go with your wife to holidays and spend 4,000. Don't spend it on heating system. So I think this is the key. What Luis also mentioned, you usually don't need to spend so much money. Even with radiators, I also told to my friends, try this winter without changing radiators. No, don't spend 2,000. Maybe you will save 50 or 100 euros. It's peanuts. So try to this. I think this is the message what we need to spread. And on the other hand, also depending what we also mentioned, what is the aim? Someone wants heat pump, someone wants new Tesla, someone is not in that game. Someone wants kitchen of 30 grand. There is no payback period on kitchen. Someone wants heating system. So this is the reason why to buy a heat pump is the main question. Do you want to buy it because it's cheap to run, it's green, it's whatever it is?
So, as I said, I won't be buying a heat pump. What I am currently doing is persuading my mum to buy a heat pump. So I think that's Pesta Power, even though I'm clearly not 5 years old. And I guess what I would say to her is definitely don't spend 20 grand, because like everyone has said so far, there are ways that you can do it for a lot less. For me, I think it's kind of about comfort. So it's really nice to think that the most efficient way for a heat pump to operate is to be operating pretty much continuously, which means the house is always warm. My mum's house is absolutely freezing. Often I don't go down in winter because it's too cold. So I really like the idea of it's a beneficial system for her. Obviously for her it's really important that it's environmentally friendly, but I think just the kind of like the continuous heating element, like that is a good thing.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, a big important point to point out here is like what's happened with the price of oil recently is like so many people need to start thinking of energy security rather than everything else. It's like, are you worried about your bills in the future, not just now? And I think obviously, the electrification of heat does a huge inroad in this kind of stuff, especially when you pair it with battery and things like that. So again, I wouldn't spend £15,000 on a heat pump, but not to plug HeatGeek again, but when I did my property, it came out at £2,000 with Zero Disrupt, and that was for an efficiency of 380%. So again, you know, heat pumps don't actually cost £15,000. Like there's a lot of fat in these quotations and all this kind of stuff. And again, it's people's time, it's people's, you know, knowledge that we're sharing here. So again, with Zero Disrupt, if you're using AI to help you with the design, it's literally taking you an hour to do work that would normally take you 8 hours if the customer's coming back with loads of different questions, so you're giving different options. So again, by helping the installers to cut the amount of time down that they're actually on site, you're bringing that price down into something that's, again, comparable with a boiler cost, which is the most important thing. Then throw in the fact of, like, this is energy security as well. Again, like, this is the way this industry needs to move forward, because, like, it's just so obvious. Like, when you put it down to that logical point of 3,000 for a boiler, 3,000 for a heat pump, it's more efficient, and you get the energy security for the next 10, 15 years or whatever. You know, it becomes a no-brainer. You've just got to have the installer having that knowledge to have that conversation and just lay it out there in front of the homeowner. And again, you don't have to push them into it. It's there on paper. It just becomes so obvious of, like, well, why wouldn't I? I don't care how it works. I don't care how my boiler works. But that's just the most logical thing for me to do. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think this is where timing is important. So, you know, if your radiators are starting to... My radiators were gross. I knew I needed to change my whole system, and that was the timing element. So we were going to have to do something bigger than just the heat source anyway. The boiler was starting to be on its last legs, you know. I was, like, wedging valves open, this, that, and the other. So I think... And that's probably why we're seeing not a massive growth, because of the timing element as well. So the market, you know... When individual people are coming around to thinking about heat pumps, and their boiler's on its last legs, and they haven't got a big holiday planned that year, then they can think about, you know, the heat pump and the change in their transition and their journey. But that is so many different parameters that have to fall into place at the moment for the market when we're still in the early innovators.
So one of the challenges I see in the world of heat pumps is the fact that heating's really boring. Right? And no one has ever asked to see my heat pump at home. Right? My friends don't come round and go, show me the heat pump. So I think most people think about their heating when it breaks. You get in a shower and the shower's cold and you go, I've got to ring a bloody plumber. I know that one of the problems I have with pornography is it's given people an unrealistic idea of how quickly a plumber will arrive at your house. So you call the plumber in, I need this fixed today, and he can get me a heat pump by the end of next month. So they're waving at me frantically because we've got about 30 seconds. So in the next few seconds, I need you to tell me, how do you solve the problem of my boiler is broken, I want a heat pump? And the second one is, you've now got 5 seconds to sell me a heat pump. Ian.
Cheers. Pornography and Tinder, where did this go? We need mass manufacturing. I know that there's manufacturers in the UK that are developing new areas to actually manufacture heat pumps in the UK. If we can get that demand, that deployment, then yeah, it should match the reactive market that we've got in the heating sector, and we can be proactive and have stock. Or you can go around and grab one of Graham's 11 heat pumps if you need it quick.
So I think the main part is support, and this is probably one of the reasons why you have such a mass gas boiler industry, because, and I am, let's say, in Croatia and working with different countries, I always said, put heat pump where you have support of local installer and manufacturer at your place, because this is your way when something is not working. On the other hand, you know, you have also experience. Usually, you don't have so much problem with this unit. You have different options with backup heater, with this and that. So usually, you don't have so much problems. But support is of course important, and I think service engineers, this is one of the most important job. My background was service and technical support engineer. So I think we are not putting enough focus on these guys, because these guys, they need to understand all of what we are talking today. Because you come on site and usually it's nothing to do with a heat pump, but you need to do everything to solve the problem. And then someone will say, yeah, hire is not working, hire is bad because this guy, he put the pump in a wrong direction. Yep. So this is something what we need to work on.
No, I've got the answer. It's easy. Get an ADF thermal, go to Wolseley,
Agreed.
get a hire, job done.
Go Adia Thermal. I had the first one in the world.
Is that a pay rise?
I've got a porn joke for you. So I guess what we can say about heat pump engineers, which is very good, is that they don't come quickly. Moving on. I guess what I would say is that we need more installers in the space. I'm now going to plug a second Nesta scheme, which is called Start at Home. So for heating engineers, gas heating engineers, oil heating engineers, who are thinking that the next step for them is heat pumps, the first step, I think, is some training. And the second step, install a heat pump in your own home, learn how it works, get really used to it, and then you can be someone else who comes onto the market. That's just a normal cum, by the way, not the other sort. Works in the market, and then there's not such a wait for installers.
Yeah, I'll keep it nice and sweet. Get a Heat Geek in your home. Literally, it's an expert with the right tools. That's all you need. Your local heating engineer, they'll sell it better than anybody here. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you. And for those of you who don't have a heat pump at home, I've actually got a Generation 5 Samsung high mileage on eBay at the moment.
How much?
To you, €200, but you've got to pick it up.
But it's custom for you. You're out of the...
No warranty. Anyhow, thank you so much. Thanks for coming to listen to us. Hopefully that was useful. I don't know if we're doing questions from the floor. No, we've run out of time, so it was a one-way conversation. Thank you very much.